Hello, Algebra 1. In this video, we're going to talk about solving literal equations. So, a literal equation is an equation with mostly variables. So, it's an equation written with mostly variables. Another word that we use often for a literal equation is a formula. And so, it's a very helpful skill to take a formula or a literal equation and solve for one of the other variables in the formula. So look at some examples. Below we've got the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle. So notice that perimeters, we use the variable capital P. And that equals 2 times W, which stands for the width, plus 2 times L, which stands for the length. So this is a literal equation or a formula. In this concept, you would learn how to solve for one of the other variables, like W, width, or L, length. Another formula is the area of a rectangle. So that's indicated by capital A, and that equals L times W. I bet you know what that means. That means length times width. So again, that one has all variables in that literal equation or formula. And then finally, another one like it is the formula for distance. So distance, and usually we indicate that with a lowercase d, equals r times t, and you may know this, rate times time. So we're going to look at some different literal equations, and together we're going to solve them for the indicated variable. So it says solve the literal equation for y, and that means we are going to get it in y equals form. So the first thing you do is look at the equation and see what is happening to y. Well, the only thing that's happening in this first equation is it is being multiplied by 5. So we can undo that multiplication by dividing everything by 5. So notice we're going to divide both of the terms on the right side of the equal sign by 5. So when we do that, 5 divided by 5 is just 1y, and we don't have to write the 1. 3 divided by 5, we will just leave in fraction form, 3/5, and then we'll place the x next to it. And then plus 10 divided by 5, which is 2. And we've done it. So we have taken that original literal equation and solved it just for y. So let's try the one to the right. Notice on the left side of the equal sign, we have a lot more than just a y. We have a 12 that's multiplying, and then we have a 24x that is being added to that. So let's start by subtracting the 24x. We're going to undo that. And we're going to rewrite that equation. So we have 12y equals negative 24x. I'm just going to put my x term first because that's usually how we write those, plus 36. Now I'm still wanting to get that y by itself. It's being multiplied by 12. So I'm going to divide by 12, and I'm going to divide everything in the equation by 12. So y will equal negative 24 divided by 12 is negative 2x, and then plus 36 divided by 12 is 3. So we have done it. We're not getting a single number answer. We are literally getting our equation in a different form. So the last one, we want to do the same thing. We want to solve for y. We have lots of things happening on the left side of the equal sign that we need to undo. So we need to undo the 8x that's being added and the 6 that's being subtracted. So let's start by subtracting the 8x over to the right, and we'll rewrite what we have, which is 4y minus 6 equals negative 8x. Now let's go ahead and move that 6 over. So let's add it to both sides. So we have 4y equals negative 8x plus 6. One last thing to get this into y equals form. 4 is being multiplied, y is being multiplied by 4, so let's divide everything by 4. And that will leave us with y equals negative 2x, because negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2, plus, and then let's just reduce that fraction, so 3/2. Let's try a few more. So this says solve the literal equations or formulas for the indicated variable. So what we have in the first formula on the left is the area for a triangle, and it is A, which is area, equals 1/2 B stands for base, H stands for the height of the triangle. And then the directions say solve for the height. So we look on the right side of the equal sign. We need to undo all the math that's happening to H. So the first thing let's tackle is it's being multiplied by 1/2. So to get rid of a fraction that's multiplying, we can multiply by both sides by the reciprocal. So we're going to flip that fraction and multiply by 2/1. That will undo that fraction. So on the left side of the equal sign, we have 2 times A, or area, equals, notice that our 2's divide out and we just have base times height. Now what's happening with the height is that the base is multiplying. So in algebra, if two things stand right next to each other, it's multiplication. So to undo that, let's divide. And then I'm going to write, since my H is by itself, I'm just going to move it over to the left side of the equal sign and say height, or H, equals, and then 2 times A divided by B. I know it will feel awkward that you're not ending up with a number or you can't do anything else on the right side of the equal sign to simplify, but this is a good technique to learn and to be able to do, where you just take a formula and you rewrite it or you solve it for a different variable. So the first formula gave us area if we knew the base times the height. This new form of the formula, and I'll put a star by it if I can, tells us the height if we know the area and the base. The next one, so this is a formula for distance, and it equals rate times time. So it says solve for r. So we look at what's happening to the rate. It's being multiplied by time. So let's divide both sides by t, or by time. So I'm going to move my r over to the left side of the equal sign, and that equals distance divided by time, or d over t. And then finally, we want to solve this last one, which is the formula for perimeter, a rectangle. We're going to solve it for w, or for width. So on the right side of the equal sign, we need to subtract away that 2 times L. And we'll just rewrite, and I'm going to move my 2w to the left side of the equal sign, and that's going to equal my P minus 2L. So the last thing to do is to divide both sides by 2. So W will equal perimeter minus 2 times the length, all divided by 2. All right, now we're going to solve this equation for y. Then we're going to evaluate, okay? So first look over on the left. We have a 4x that's added to our 2y on the left side of the equal sign. So let's start by subtracting that. And we'll rewrite, we have 2y equals negative 4x plus 12. I bet you know what to do now. So we're multiplying by 2. So let's divide both sides. And when I say both sides, I mean everything on the right side by 2. So my negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and then I have an x, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we just accomplished the first part of the directions. We solved the equation for y. Now we're going to evaluate for the given values of x. So notice it says over on the right, when x equals negative 1, y equals blank. So let's take our new equation and let's plug in negative 1 for x. So what I did was I did negative 2 times, and then I put in negative 1, and then plus 6. So negative 2 times negative 1 is 2, plus 6 will give us 8. So when x equals negative 1, y equals 8. Let's try the next one. So now we're going to take that same equation, but we're going to plug in 3 for x. So negative 2 times 3 plus 6. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, plus 6 equals 0. That concludes the notes over solving literal equations.